the Hollywood world was in a frenzy. After tonight's shocking claims of Rasheeda's unintended pregnancy and the more persistent than ever speculations that Mendeecees might be the father, social media is bursting with sadness, fury, and speculation, as fans are completely shocked by what has happened. What does this mean for Rasheeda and Kurt Frost's marriage, and for Dandy Smith, who has supported Mendeecees through thick and thin? People with knowledge of the situation say that the drama is developing more quickly than anyone can follow, with contentious debates, secret meetings. And this issue occurred when everyone thought the reality TV industry couldn't get any dirtier. It left behind terrible betrayals, friendships that were broken, and a loss of trust. Visit often as we look into this. Every amazing aspect of this amazing circumstance will astound you. From the initial suspicious signs to the fierce conflicts that threaten to undo all of these superstars' hard-won achievements. But in the end, it's evident that truth will never. This scandal is not to be missed. So get your popcorn ready. Similar to the far-off storm approaching, the rumor began quietly, consisting solely of private messages and a whisper among close friends. But it quickly gathered steam. Suspicions that the kid might not be the child of her longtime husband, Kirk, are even more startling to Rasheeda's admirers than when she announced her unanticipated pregnancy. This occurred before the rumors turned into a loud scream that shook the entire entertainment sector. Instead, Frost had made an unexpected charge against Mendeecees. Intimate rendezvous, late-night phone calls, and covert meetings between Rasheeda and other alleged insiders surfaced. Those who were genuinely upset by the incident sensed uneasiness from the couple. And no amount of pictures or carefully staged public appearances could mask that. Claimed individuals close to the couple who had noticed a widening gap between Kirk and Rasheeda over the previous few months, after an anonymous source disclosed texts purportedly exchanged between Rasheeda and Mendeecees. Tensions escalated as they combed through old social media posts, closely scrutinizing each comment and every nuanced exchange between Rasheeda and Mendeecees, in an attempt to find the smoking gun that would validate their worst fears. These pieces contained longing, love, and a familiarity that left more questions than answers. Kirk was reportedly shocked to learn that his marriage was in danger and that the paternity of his newborn child was also being looked at. As per insiders, he approached a heated disagreement that left them both crying was said to have ended with raised accusations flying and the sound of something heavy being thrown against the wall. Rumor has it that Kirk requested an explanation, but Rasheeda declined to confirm, or the reports were denied by Mendeecees, who was fighting his own storm. According to individuals close to Yanandi, who had stayed faithful despite all of Mendeecees' previous issues. The accusations devastated her, and she severed her ties with friends and family because she couldn't handle the betrayal. During a horrifying encounter with Mendeecees, she allegedly questioned all they had made together and sought the truth. Although Mendeecees denied any wrongdoing and first stated that he and Rasheeda were merely friends, his denials only served to fire supporters started watching old footage of Mendy and Rasheeda grinning, standing too close, and exchanging glances that seemed to have hidden meanings. Even activities that seemed innocuous, like a warm embrace or a smile, were being reinterpreted in the harsh light, although vague and unconfirmed. A mysterious video purportedly depicting Rasheeda and Mendeecees together at a secret gathering away from their partners' prying eyes started making the rounds on the internet, created the impression among many followers that illicit activities had been taking place behind the scenes. Fans of Team Kirk flocked to his page with words of encouragement and support as social media erupted with rumors, accusations, and desperation, while others united against Rasheeda, accusing her of betrayal and deceit. Through the occasion, Yandi supporters also expressed their emotions to protect her reputation. They were incensed and advised her to leave Mendeecees right away. According to reports, Kirk's children began to turn away from Rasheeda before the family was divided because they were unable to cope with the circumstance. It has been said that emotions between the two men escalated when Kirk confronted Mendes immediately and demanded explanations in front of a shocked crowd. It appears that this was brought on by their fortuitous meeting at a gathering for a mutual acquaintance to keep the fight from turning violent. Friends reportedly had to hold Kirk at one point. Kirk was not involved, according to the DCs, who supposedly maintained their composure and claimed that the claims were the product of envious outsiders who wished to destroy everyone. Unbelievably, Kirk said in no uncertain terms that he will, if necessary, pursue the truth in court. As things spiraled out of control, Rasheeda started to feel more and more alone. And her old friends, who had previously supported her, started to quietly distance themselves. It was alleged that sponsorship deals were terminated because businesses didn't want to be linked to such a contentious issue. Regardless of the truth, Rasheeda was rapidly realizing that the stakes were higher than ever, and that the harm to her reputation might already be irreparable at the outset. For the sake of his family, Kirk apparently told close friends that he needed to know the truth and that in the worst situation, he would not think about moving away permanently. His options, including asking for a paternity test and maybe a divorce, were reportedly being discussed with attorneys. Insiders allege that Yandi sought much-needed spiritual guidance and confided in her closest pals. The proof that something very horrible had happened was mounting. But she couldn't believe the man she had fought so hard for. Yandi and Mendeecees were harassing Kirk and Rasheeda by recording all of their conversations and yelling at them. Media organizations set up shop outside their home to get a peek at the chaotic marriage, with the problem seemingly worsening. An apparent audio recording emerged that seemed to show an emotional phone call. The fans sought explanations, the reality TV community watched with caution, and the internet created endless wonder, even though the internet first failed to confirm the authenticity of the audio. The call between Rasheeda and Mendeecees, in which both acknowledged having sentiments that went beyond friendship, was enough to bring it all to an abrupt end. #Mendeecees and #RasheedBetray were trending hashtags for days, no matter how the story turned out. It was obvious that Kirk and Yandandi would never be the same again as the damage from the issue increased. Even though the mainstream media started to cover the issue, the horror was only getting started. Intensify, because Kirk was caught in a nightmare. He was unable to eat, sleep, or wake. He closed his eyes and saw only the eerie pictures of Rasheeda and Mendeecees laughing and smiling together. Even that now seemed like a bitter betrayal to many who felt close to Kirk, even though Rasheeda was apparently struggling with her own issues. And feeling isolated and lonely, they claimed that Kirk was overtaken with rage and incredulity. Unable to understand how everything he had built with her could be falling apart so suddenly. Tormented by regret and fear of the future, they wept alone for hours. In what seemed to be an effort to make things better, she had tried multiple times to explain things to Kirk, but Kirk could not hear. Words were insufficient to rebuild the damaged confidence. After closing Mendeecees, Kirk started contacting friends he had shared it with to get their confirmation of his innocence. Although he and Rasheeda had become close, he insisted that their connection had never devolved into anything improper in order to protect his identity. A shocking interview revealed that a former assistant who claimed to have worked closely with Rasheeda saw several violent incidents. Any resistance was drowned out by the roars that had replaced the whispering. The damage was done, the fans had already decided. Rasheeda was the type of proof that was forbidden. Once Mendeecees reached her, she would lighten up and laugh a bit too loudly. Even though Rasheeda and Mendeecees were meant to be just friends, their late-night phone chats were much too intimate. Ignored, and it did little more than feed the flames that were already consuming all. Yandandi decided to take unilateral action while still in disbelief over the treachery. She had been discreetly speaking with attorneys to discuss her rights. In the event that she ended the relationship, according to insiders. According to her close friends and family, Amy struggled to balance her love for him with the embarrassment of drawing attention to herself in such a significant public quarrel. It became even more complex when rumors circulated that Mendeecees and Yandandi had been talking about growing their family. Kirk's family was incensed for him and insisted that he get a paternity test right away, since they believed he should know the truth before making any decisions that would change his life. However, this aim suddenly looked tragically unreachable. Kirk was initially reluctant to accept this. In stories she cited, Kirk's mother urged him to protect himself and his children while sobbing and bathing him. As the years went by and his suspicions began to eat away at the memories of the life they had created together, Rasheeda had lied to him in such a terrible way. When Kirk arrived at their shared house, the tension was so high that he finally made the cruel decision to threaten Rasheeda with punishment unless she took a paternity test. Kirk suggested that he should use his mind instead of his emotions, and that love would not be sufficient to atone for betrayal. Rasheeda answered the door, her eyes red-rimmed and her face pallid and tired after hours of crying. She spoke in a stiflingly heavy voice. Kirk reportedly informed her immediately of what would happen. One of the worst times in Kirk's life was the encounter. Rasheeda is said to have sobbed and sworn that the charges were untrue, and that she would never betray him in this way again. Nevertheless, Kirk publicly told her that trust was no longer sufficient after weeks of suffering and uncertainty. Coerced into accepting the test, Rasheeda signed the required documents with shaking hands. Following the paternity test's release, the internet went into a frenzy, with some people supporting Kirk's, others accused Kirk of humiliating Rasheeda by making the matter public. Kirk was more concerned about his future and shielding himself from additional sorrow as the days passed as they awaited the test results. In the case of the individuals concerned, it was like gradual torture as a diversion. Kirk reportedly immersed himself in his career, while Rasheeda reportedly retreated from society because she was too embarrassed to deal with the attention. Nonetheless, Mendeecees remain steadfast and keep posting motivational sayings about tenacity and commitment. Mendeecees' health was deteriorating, according to those close to him, and some said he had been drinking excessively because he couldn't handle the stress and the thought of losing everything he had worked so hard to achieve. However, a lot of followers thought the behind-the-scenes social media post was tone-deaf and offensive. Apparently, Yandandi, who was still in mourning, took some time off to think about what she wanted. After taking the kids with her, insiders say she abandoned the male VCs in their shared house, surrounded by memories of a life that was once theirs. Tensions increased when Kirk's legal team allegedly handed Mendeecees a cease and desist letter, telling him to avoid Rasheeda and to avoid having any public conversations about the issue. Insiders say Kirk was dedicated to protecting what little LaRusha tried to maintain, what little semblance of normalcy she could manage by posting carefully selected content on social media to come off as powerful and dignified, but he would not stand for any more insults. Persistence. While many individuals didn't think it was true, each post sparked a barrage of comments condemning her for betraying her child, demanding the truth, and casting doubt on the child's paternity. Because of the extreme strain, her loved ones were worried that she would lose it. Tensions hit up record high as the entertainment industry prepared for the next bombshell. Although there were reports that the paternity test results were in and that only a few insiders knew the truth was being kept under wraps. Many speculated that the results would support the claims made by Rasheeda and Mendeecees, or would, while Kirk, Rasheeda, Mendeecees, and Yandandi waited on the edge of their emotions, wondering who would fall and who would withstand the aftermath. The reality that had destroyed so many relationships was proven. Their lives were profoundly affected by the paternity test findings. The emotional toll it took on everyone was so bad that Kirk could not concentrate on anything. His thoughts continued to reminisce about all the moments he had spent with Rasheeda, questioning whether any of her smiles were genuine. More than that, he was beginning to question everything. which cast doubt on every sublime memory. In the meantime, Rasheeda's anxiety was getting out of hand. Others who knew her talked about panic attacks, insomnia, and intense sadness. Because he could no longer remain under the same roof where so much betrayal might have occurred. Insiders said that Kirk had even considered permanently departing. Rasheeda feared what would happen if the results didn't help her. But she secretly hoped they would clear her name and show that her life was still intact despite the fear and shame. She spent hours reading the hurtful remarks on her social media accounts while hiding in her bedroom, because they were like knives to her heart. Because of the paparazzi that followed him about and speculated about everything he did. Mendeecees tried, in vain, to maintain a low profile in the region. There was even one publication that published an explosive article in the weeks before the pregnancy announcement. Mendeecees and Rasheeda were allegedly meeting in secret at a mutual friend's house. According to a story that included grainy pictures of two people cuddling in a dark driveway. Despite the lack of confirmation on the names, the public anticipated the worst. Mendeecees' once proud and uncompromising image began to fall apart as their followers swiftly and violently attacked Mendeecees, accusing him of assaulting him, doubting his commitment, and hurting not one but two families. Friends claimed that because of the charges, he was extremely despondent and seldom ever left his house. Even her once supportive friends started to turn away from Yandi because they were taking part in such a troubling conversation at the same time that she was going through her own shift. Her family said, arguing that the betrayal had made her heart more susceptible. She had suffered public humiliation and was resolved not to be taken by surprise again. It was no longer her belief that love could overcome all obstacles. Speculation circulated that Yandi was actually, even though Yandi's heart hadn't come to terms with it yet. She appeared to be bracing herself for the worst when she met with the famous divorce lawyer who was known for getting large sums of money for the incorrect marriages. The results suddenly came to Kirk, who was holding the sealed clinic envelope. He clutched it with trembling and contemplated whether to open it with Rasheeda or by himself. He finally came to the conclusion that he couldn't confront her just yet and that he preferred to learn the facts in private without conflict or tears, with his heart thumping so loudly that he could hardly hear anything. Kirk was sitting by himself in his car when he got the gift. After hearing nothing more, he saw it at once. He declared the child to be his, coldly and clinically. Kirk repeated the statement, his hands shaking as he did not believe his own eyes. The child was his. No man's, no one else's. He felt a rush of emotions, including relief, anger, tiredness, and sorrow. He didn't feel victorious and vindicated because the innocence, love, and trust had already been betrayed, and no piece of paper could come back with it. In the meantime, Rasheeda sat at home with her phone and waited for Kirk to call. On the first ring, she gave a shaky response when the time came. Without saying anything further, Kirk just gave her the results and hung up. As the betrayal on both sides persisted, Rasheeda sobbed into the quiet. Even Kirk had been telling the truth all along, but no one had accepted her word for it. The results were announced a few hours later, shocking many supporters. There were others who instantly expressed regret for their worries about Rasheeda, while others maintained that even though the child belonged to Kirk, there was still a possibility that she and Mendeecees would have a toxic connection. DC apparently withdrew for a while to feed the speculations after learning of the affair. He reportedly objected to his name being brought up without reason and blamed Kirk and Rasheeda, the media, and fans for letting the story get out of hand. However, she saw things differently, by bringing their connection into the conversation or providing an explanation. Yandi allegedly reminded Mendeecees that a man's role as the father of Rasheeda's child could not make up for the fact that he had ignored their relationship and their family. Kirk, now destitute and embarrassed by his misgivings about Rasheeda, set up a private dinner for the two of them to begin the mending process. But trust had to be won again, and the den conclusion was deemed insufficient. though Rasheeda wasn't present when he arrived at the restaurant. She sent him a quick text to let him know she needed some time. Ironically, Kirk was kept waiting. After weeks of looking for the answers and the truth, Love and hip-hop producers reportedly made a valiant effort to resolve the issue behind the scenes after feeling confused and isolated. Others reportedly tried to take advantage of the disturbances by calling for a special reunion episode that would compel Kirk, Rasheeda, Mendeecees, and Yandi to attend. Drama was a big seller for the entertainment industry, and this argument had all the makings of a ratings bonanza. However, others feared that things had gotten out of hand and that the emotional pain of the audience was too tremendous to be exploited for the sake of increasing viewership. Were split. Some fervently believed that where there was smoke, there was fire, while others strongly supported Rasheeda and gave her high marks for her fortitude and tenacity. Popular hashtags like #TeamKirk and #JusticeForIda turned social media into a battlefield. All people had their own opinions, and none of them were prepared to change, especially when paired with more pessimistic views like #CheatersNeverChange and #CANDGate. As the days dragged on into weeks, Kirk and Rasheeda sought to resolve their differences through individual therapy sessions as they tried to adjust to their new reality. While Rasheeda fought bitterness over her greatest love's doubts, Kirk was devastated by his inability to believe her. The ghost of Mendeecees lingered over everything, a continuous reminder of how easily trust can be betrayed and how easily love might be destroyed, if anything. The story was only getting started, but suspicion and rumors had ruined it all. Kirk was the father, according to the end test, but over the course of the following few weeks, it became more and more obvious that their relationship would never be the same in the middle of the night. Kirk woke up and stared at the ceiling, wondering how he could have doubted the woman he had sworn to love and protect. Even though Rasheeda had once been bright and lively, mistrust and public humiliation had left deep wounds that were not healing, according to her close friends. She was more reserved and silent, and she seemed to always be carrying a grief with her. She had also ceased to smile and laugh. Pregnancy should have been a joyful moment, but as her belly increased, it had become a living hell. She was a symbol of fresh life, and the emotional upheaval around her only made Kirk and Rasheeda's attempts at reunion appear phony and rushed. Their inability to express the frustration, disappointment, and fear contaminated every therapy session, late-night chat, and dinner. The producers of Love and Hip Hop came to the conclusion that trouble behind the scenes might require more than love, following the approval of a two-part special that promised viewers an uncensored, unfiltered battle between Yandandi and Kirk Rasheeda Mendeecees. The fans were shocked. People believed that because of the extent of the betrayal and the suffering, they would all agree to show up together. But it was difficult to say no because of expensive appearance fees and contractual obligations, according to insiders. Rasheeda scarcely spoke during the drive as the day of the tape drew nearer. Tension was rising. There was a noticeable tension in the studio as the four of them came separately. The frigid, inflexible body language of DC and Yandandi made it obvious. Every dramatic moment was captured by cameras, and team members whispered to one another. Eventually, Rasheeda broke the silence as they sat down on that notorious couch. She looked straight at Mendeecees before saying what everyone had been eagerly anticipating. When she asked, "Did anything ever happen between us? Or is this all just nasty gossip?" Her voice was firm but shaking. Yandi sat next to him, expressionless, and he glanced at her uneasily. For what seemed like an age, he shook his head and muttered, "I won't lie, we got too close and the room blew. Nothing happened at all." With Rasheeda looking like she had been physically slapped, her entire body trembling from the confession. Kirk leaping to his feet, his fists clenched in a mask of anger, and Yandi's eyes full of tears and her hands shaking. In her lap, producers hurried in to try to defuse the situation. But the damage was already done. The footage of the fight that went viral online in the days after the taping shows that. Despite the fact that there may not have been a full-fledged affair, there was an emotional betrayal and intimacy that went beyond any bounds of loyalty and respect. In some ways, the pain was worse than any physical suffering. In a matter of minutes, he became famous, and admirers were scrutinizing every word, every look, and every tear. Mendes was charged with allowing the situation to spiral out of control, while Kurt was charged with not believing Rasheeda at all. Rasheeda continued to be accused by others of allowing another man to enter. Came so near when it looked like everyone was in pain and nobody was blameless. Yade bravely made the decision to announce on social media that she was taking a vacation from men and the limelight in order to concentrate on her own healing after experiencing embarrassment and pain. Advertisers harshly criticized DC, severing their ties while fans applauded her fortitude. And millions liked the post, which featured a picture of her alone on the beach. Kirk and Rasheeda decided to put their relationship on hold for a while to see if their love could withstand the destruction, and Kirk subsequently moved to a small condo across town. They parted ways, leaving him to handle the chaos alone, in a particularly poignant moment caught on tape. Family members from both sides joined in as Rasheeda remained in their house, concentrating on her baby and seeking some calm. Others indicated that it could be time to let go, while others urged them to fight for their marriage. When Kirk appeared more vulnerable than ever in public while holding a bouquet of flowers, fans questioned whether the couple was reuniting, or whether this was just another desperate attempt to maintain their romance. Despite being moved, Rasheeda was wary because she understood that forgiveness needed more than just words. According to insiders, Kirk sincerely apologized to Rasheeda that evening and pleaded for her forgiveness, causing them to cry together in their arms. After the kid was born, Rasheeda was reportedly thinking of leaving the entertainment business to move, start again, and get away from the toxic atmosphere that had all but destroyed her life. Even the deepest scars can be healed by love. After being hurt by these reports and realizing too late how easily he had allowed his uncertainties and anxieties to separate him from his child, Kirk made the decision to concentrate on beginning a new life for himself and his child out of the spotlight. Even though Mendeecees passed the NA test, Yandi and Mendeecees' marriage was severely damaged emotionally when their trust was betrayed. They would stop at nothing to reunite with her, even if it meant temporarily allowing her to go off and find happiness for herself. They both understood that rebuilding was almost impossible and that the road ahead would be difficult and time-consuming at a charity event. During a rare public appearance free of memes a few weeks later, Yandandi was questioned. "Love isn't always enough," she remarked, grinning bitterly about their relationship. That was Anthos, who had followed their romance over the years, found solace in the devastating admission that the conflict that began with one rumor and created a path of broken hearts and low self-esteem. But Nobo did survive without incident, and while life would go on, the wounds of betrayal would never go away. This tragic event serves as a terrifying reminder of how easily commitment and love can be tested. From the conclusion of the drama, it is evident that damage has been done. On the other hand, Rasheeda's injuries from the betrayal may never fully heal. Fans all throughout the world have been amazed by his tenacity, and Kirk's valiant attempts at reconciliation demonstrate how since the traumatic split between Mendeecees and Yandandi, many have wondered how brittle love can be when trust is violated, wondering whether this disagreement marked the beginning of the real mending process in their relationship, or if the questions that remain once an era ends are: will Rasheeda learn the forbearance to continue to forgive Kirk, or will she decide to begin after moving away from the distressing memories? Kirk is able to express his love with actions instead of simply words. Could a reunion be too painful, or could Yandandi be able to get over the emotional betrayal? The way these stories develop over time will become evident. But one thing is certain: nothing will ever be the same again. And we now want to find your place in this complex emotional network and whether you think Rasheeda should. Is it better to end her relationship with Kirk or give him another chance? Will the relationship between Yandendi and Mendeecees endure the storm or suffer harm? Been completed. Kindly provide your feedback in the space provided below. If you were for more incredible videos, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. If you're enjoying today's thrilling drama, make sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next shocking discovery, since there will be updates soon. And we promise you won't want to.